Yeah.
Are you recording locally or recording in the cloud?
I'm recording locally just because it's the one thing I do on this computer that makes the computer even try to have to work a little bit.
Right, but if your computer disconnects or if you have bad internet.
Right, but I have great internet, and
Okay.
so no,
Okay,
it's just
it's a recording.
And Chris,
Yep.
I need to record it again anyway one day, right? So at the end, this is the first time I'm not giving it in person, that talk. So it's gonna be.
Oh, this is a remote testing run. Awesome. Okay, cool.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how we get, and I hope to get great feedback from all of you at the end. And
What time is it right now there?
don't ask.
Oh, okay. I won't.
And I work for an OS company, and sometimes that's kind of normal, so I'm used to it.
Gotcha.
Okay. Well, I'm going to mute and join my work call. So, Chris, Johannes, all yours. I'll catch you in an hour. So there we go.
Good luck in your call.
Have fun.
Thank you. Yep.
See you, Brian.
We will definitely have more fun, right? But don't tell him.
He knows.
Has he muted us already? No. Did he say is he recording another video?
No. He was just joining another call from a work PC with his boss.
Gotcha.
He might need to record another video next week, is what he was explaining at the beginning.
We will definitely have a lot more fun then. Nice. So what is it you're talking about tonight, Johannes?
I'm not gonna tell you until I start, Chris.
All right.
I would give away all of the reason for you to be here.
I don't have a prep deck. I don't have an intro song. I've got nothing for you. I don't even have like a WWC walk on stage montage.
It's fine that you're here and taking care of us, Chris, to be honest.
Oh, hearts.
Johannes, that's pretty weak. I'd say, but you should just like go get some beer and bring it back, and that'll be your presentation.
No,
you're gonna keep doing it straight.
Yeah, I wanna keep do it the German way, right? I promised something to Brian, and that means I'm gonna give him what I promised at the end.
Very.
I thought that with beer was in fact the German way.
Yeah, well,
is that incorrect?
Only after work, right?
Let's say today I did have something else than beer before joining the call.
Johannes.
So
revelations are coming fast and furious now.
Yeah, so I like beer, but not always.
Yeah. Well, it kind of, the older you get, I mean, the more you have to worry about your waistline, right? So,
that's also true.
It takes a lot more beer to get you there than a nice Oban 14-year-old or Lagavulin 16 or something. Those are very tasty for me.
Indeed.
Yeah, that's how it is. But we'll see in Vegas. I think we're gonna have some beers again, and I think, Chris, you know that we're running the Community Day in Munich, and also the EMEA Hero Summit is also in Munich this year. In
when
September.
Is the Community Day?
On the 24th of September.
24th of September.
No, yeah, 24th. No, not 24th. 14th of September. And the Hero Summit is actually on the 15th, and it's just one day before Oktoberfest. So it's gonna be pretty fun, to be honest. And it's gonna be a great week.
The week before that, I'm going to be in London for DevRelCon, and I do not think I'll be able to pull off getting to Munich the week right after. Unfortunately, that stinks.
Next year.
All
and
right.
then we can plan for coming over a little bit earlier as well.
We'll always have reInvent.
That's true.
We'll always have reInvent. That's a good line. Yeah.
It's almost like we should put that in a movie.
Yeah. An old movie.
A real black and white. Who can we get to play there?
Yeah.
All right. Have
right.
have we reached a critical mass? Do we have enough folk here to light this candle? I think we do.
Oh, at least I'm here.
Hey, Max.
Yes, hey, whoever you are, I have no idea.
I don't know Max either, but I know Chris. I
Oh,
didn't know
yeah,
Michael
yeah.
before, right? So
Fast friends now.
We're all friends here.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, Johannes, do you have ability to screen share?
let me try. I would say that I have.
Wunderbar.
This is a great starting slide, I think. You want to get started?
Let's get started. Let's do it. Let's light this candle.
Let's get started. Okay, so cool. Then, Brian taught me something around 45 minutes. I will have problems watching time, so someone will need to shout out if I take too long. And if I'm finished after 20 minutes, then we can chat about beer. That's also fine.
It is. It is.
Or
So
scotch.
let's just get going.
I'm sorry. Do you want organic questions as we proceed, or would you
I was just
prefer
going to
to
say,
Okay.
I don't care. I gave this talk already once in person. I got a lot of questions throughout the talk. This was really cool because it makes the talk exciting. And I think that's what we're all here for. So please, if you have a question, start shooting, raise your hand, either drop something in the chat or just jump on top of me. I don't care. It's hard when you do remote presentations. I will not try to watch the videos so I can see Michael, I can see Chris. If you have a question, I'll see that. For the others, it's going to be harder for me. So just start shouting and asking questions.
I'll keep an eye on the chat channel and the Q&A channel. So if something pops up and they don't want to talk, I'll say out loud. I have no fears.
I know. Cool. Then let's go. So why are we here? As I said, I already gave this presentation once, but there's two reasons why I'm here. First reason for that is this beautiful picture. And I guess that no one will understand what this is about, right? But that's the idea behind this picture. I'm here because, like, when I started my career in tech, I was playing an online game which is called Planetarion. It's an online game that still exists. At that time, it was one of the biggest, massive online role-playing games. That game still exists, but it is a pain because it's written in Perl. They do copy pasting files from the local to the top, but at the end, long story short, I'm trying to rebuild this game somehow. And because I'm trying to rebuild that game, I am doing some private project where I'm running this this project with like 2 or 3 people in the background. So this is my private time, but this is the one project that I kind of was already really doing on CodeCatalyst ever since I got access to the preview, which was last year in September or something like that. Second reason is a second project that I really see as the 20+2 projects, which is the title of my talk. I'm going to come to that in a second, Chris. So the second project is for the AWS community at the end. There was a hackathon run by the community builders and the Transformers team recently, which was focused on Amplify and doing something with AppSync and stuff like that. And here I got a group of community builders working together on something that we call the AWS Speakers Community. But this is the second project that we were working on. So we really spent 4 to 6 weeks as a team of 4 persons using all aspects of CodeCatalyst and getting into the weeds of where this already works and where it doesn't work. But these are the really 2 projects which brought me to create this talk and also brought me to speak more about what do I think is at the current state of CodeCatalyst, where we are, which is a very early product still, right? And maybe what my learnings are from those 2 projects as well. And I'm going to talk about the 20 projects in a second, right? So what are we going to talk about today, right? It's 20+2 projects with CodeCatalyst. What I want to highlight here is the personal opinion, the personal preference, and my learnings with the tool. Then also I want to talk a little bit about, well, what we might be aiming for with CodeCatalyst, or what I maybe have as an aspiration for CodeCatalyst, which is why I'm actually spending a lot of time in giving feedback to the team and doing content with it. But also where the AWS marketing may be a little bit overselling what the tool is capable today. And then last but not least, for the developers here, I want to talk a little bit about the developer experience that I see, which works and which doesn't work out today. So as we are a very small group, I'm going to kind of pause here for a second and try to get a sense of what is the audience that I'm talking to. Are we talking to, am I talking to developers, to CTOs, to builders, to engineers? Is there anyone wanting to give me at least a little bit of feedback there?
In the chat box, drop in if you want to, your profession. Are you on the dev side? Are you on the business side? Are you on the technical or engineering side? I'm gonna put mine. I'm saying engineer.
Yeah, that will help a little bit to shape what I'm looking at, and then also I can tailor some of the questions a little bit better. Okay, thank you so much, Max. Thanks, Garrick. That's great. So let's dive a little bit deeper. What is CodeCatalyst? Who has already heard of CodeCatalyst? Who has an idea? So let's say on a scale from 0 to 5, 5 is I know what CodeCatalyst is. I'm going to be bored. I'm just here because of Johannes. 0 is I have heard nothing about it, and 2 or 3 is something like, yes, I heard the name, but I don't really know anything about it. Cool. Yeah. Chris, I love you. Cool.
I mean, 2.
So let's go into it then. I think we have a good amount of people who have never touched CodeCatalyst yet. So I'm also going to spend some time in walking through the tool. So what is CodeCatalyst? CodeCatalyst, before we go into CodeCatalyst, I always miss, I'm not that important. Here's some information about myself. Since June this year, I'm a DevTools hero. So I'm as Chris and Brian in the realm of AWS heroes that we have, which is a group of people that is selected by AWS employees. And we get some more detailed insights sometimes. Sometimes we don't. Then there's, before that, I was a community builder. This community builder thing really is what I can only encourage all of you to look at. So if you have not heard about the Community Builders program, for me, it was a great learning opportunity. And it's more connecting more connecting, community connecting than any other program that I've been part of so far, right? So if you are an engineer, and I saw in the chat a few people saying that they are, was a great possibility for me to get into the AWS community. And this at the end is what brought me to giving talks and to talking about this. I'm a true believer in CI/CD, and this is what, well, I'm trying to influence a lot in all of the stuff that I do. And I have a YouTube channel. Happy for you to give me feedback on that one as well. And as you noticed, I'm not that important. I don't think that I'm that important. So let's talk about CodeCatalyst. If you have any questions, follow up, let me know. So CodeCatalyst. CodeCatalyst is let's say, first of all, it's a web tool. The way that we got presented this tool at reInvent last year, and also on the different summits that the AWS team presented CodeCatalyst, it is an integrated DevTools service, and it's an integrated DevOps service. At the end, it gives us a lot of possibilities what we can do in order to reinvent the way that we do software development on AWS. And this sounds a little bit aspirational. Yeah, it does. But it also sounds a little bit familiar, I would say, right? So if you look at what CodeCatalyst offers today, and I'm going to go into details, you somehow start with an organization. So you define your own organization, which is something like a group of things. Below that, you can then have some projects, code projects or development projects. And as you can see in the screenshots, I did 20 projects or 25 projects. Most of them were not real projects. The real projects are the two that I already talked about, and I'm going to use them to showcase some of the stuff a little bit later as well. So how does this sound for you? So if you think about what CodeCatalyst could be from my words until now, does this sound similar to something that you have already? Keep that in mind when we go through the next slide. If you think about how's the development lifecycle today, as a developer or as an engineer, you usually start on the left-hand side of this chain. And this is the current landscape of AWS development tools actually before reInvent last year. You as a developer start with Cloud9, you start with your own IDE. You maybe have a Git repository or something where you store your source code. In the AWS world, that's called code commit. It was called code commit at that time. So yeah, you commit your code to your source code repository. Then you do something like secure code analysis, SAS scanning, and these kind of stuff. Then you build or package your software. Then you do dynamic scanning. Then your package flows through the different tests that you want to run. You deploy that out to staging, and if everything is fine, you deploy that out to production. Then you want to monitor that at the end. That was the landscape last year, and I'm sure that a lot of you have all of these kind of flavors on how you do that, and most probably not with the AWS tools down here, right? So you might have the same kind of pipeline using GitHub Actions, or you might have a similar pipeline using Jenkins or Harness or whatever. Now, CodeCatalyst tries to attack this pipeline in a sense by covering a lot of pieces in this pipeline for you. At least that's what we've been looking at until now, right? The possibilities that CodeCatalyst offers are wide. On the one side, CodeCatalyst comes with the possibility to host your own Git repository. It comes with the possibility to run and execute your own builds, right? So there's a workflow engine, there is a CI/CD engine in it. It comes with the possibility to run GitHub Actions and also run security scans that maybe you want to run by yourself, and then also generate repos for it where you can then really also run execute tests for it. It also comes with different integration possibilities to do deployments later on. This is why this green axis at the end really shows all of the pieces that CodeCatalyst wants to touch and already touches today as we speak of through this. As I already said, those two projects I've been actively running them on CodeCatalyst for a while, and yeah, I have had very good experience with that. But there's of course still some things that need to be adjusted. If you look at this sounds similar to some other things that we already have, and you might have heard all of these names, like GitHub being one of the most known platform for all of this integration stuff. Then you might have heard of GitLab as an alternative to GitHub. You might have heard of Azure DevOps, which tries to touch a lot of those things as well. Harness then covers part of these aspects from a CI/CD perspective, and the Atlassian tools like with Jira and Bitbucket pipelines, Bitbucket itself, or pipelines, I think they call it, and Confluence, right? They all also attack that same kind of niche. So when I gave this talk in Munich, someone shouted like into the floor, "This is like a Me Too thing," and blah blah blah. Before I move on, what do you think until now from what I explained about CodeCatalyst?
Some magic.
Maybe. Anyone else?
I have opinions, but I'll wait.
That's okay. That's okay. Let's see. Let's move on. From a marketing perspective, how do we place CodeCatalyst today, right? So what is AWS telling us about CodeCatalyst? This is one of the slides that was used in the AWS Summit in Berlin, which Victor was able to give me. I think it covers a lot of the things that we're trying to get to with CodeCatalyst. This is the same picture, right, of what I had before in that pipeline view, but it's a little bit more marketing. So at the end, we want to accelerate the product setup. I'm going to talk about CodeCatalyst blueprints in a bit. We want to make sure that we collaborate together fluently. Well, sounds aspirational. I'm not sure if we can really do that already. We want to automate environments. Yes, of course, we want to automate environments. We want to automate daily workflows. Yes, we want to have workflows. The main message of this is from a marketing perspective that we really want to get the development teams on where they are today and really help them to develop software faster on AWS and bring that faster to AWS. CodeCatalyst aims to touch all parts of the software development lifecycle, which is the SDLC. And I'm going to kind of teaser, maybe that's one of the problems that we have today, right, within the tool. So here's a different slide looking at the same thing. And now I wanted to jump a little bit into the tool itself and show the different pieces that we have over here. So bear with me for a second as I try to get PowerPoint to hide. And then we're going to have a look on CodeCatalyst. So as you can see over here, I logged into CodeCatalyst already, which, by the way, is hosted on CodeCatalyst.aws. This means that it does not have any integration with the AWS console by default. So it is a separated account that you can use. You can, as a user, just directly start using it. The free tier is pretty generous. I have never passed the free tier yet, so all of my projects I've been running that in the free tier, which is pretty cool because we have run a lot of builds. After logging in, you will get to a space. You can create yourself one, or you can get invited to one. And below that space, you are then able to create multiple projects. As you can see, this is the community builder space, which I opened up for the community builders, and soon I will want to ask the heroes also to contribute to one of the projects here. This is the community builder speakers directory. So you have that project, and in that project, you will now have everything that you have from a project lifetime perspective. Let's start with the overview, but that's not the kind of really important piece. Really, just the overview of what this project is about. It pulls in a source code repository, so you have the possibility on the left-hand side. You see that you can manage issues. So you have a, let's say, basic, or well, not yet basic anymore, because there's been a lot of improvements in the last few weeks. You have a possibility to manage your own Kanban board, to manage your own backlog, to do some kind of planning and estimation. You can get team members to collaborate within the tool directly. You can also link these issues to pull requests in the same way that you know that from GitHub or Bitbucket or Jira. You also have the possibility within the project to host one or more source code repositories. This is then at the end the Bitbucket repository, Git repository, which is just standard. In our example here, we have only one. You will then also have the possibility to raise pull requests and get feedback from your colleagues before you actually merge something to a main branch. And when the tool was released, there was no possibility to have branches protected. I think that's something that is still missing. Max, this is an awesome question. I don't know if I want to answer it. It's one of the most given feedback to me in the Munich user group, but also by myself. There is no public version of projects today. You have no possibility to open up the projects for open source or something like that. And this is essentially why this community builder speaker directory, I need to close source it. So I need to invite community builders and heroes. I need to personally invite them to get into my project and collaborate. I cannot make it open source. And I can unfortunately not show my source code or my workflows or whatever with anyone that is not part of my project. We do have the pull request, as I already mentioned. I was just saying that at the time of launching this, there was no branch protection rules or something like that available. And I think this is, at least when I last tried it out, which was like 2 weeks ago, because I was just on vacation, this was also still not available. So if it recently got added, then I'm sorry for that. Then there's the development environments. I'm going to spend some more time on that later, so I'm going to skip that. At the end, it's kind of a Git pod similar thing. Then we go into the CI/CD world, which is at the end my world, right? Where you can define different workflows that can take you from development to production. You can run them on a feature branch, you can run them on a pull request, and these kind of things. We can go into details if anyone is interested then later as well. We then go to the different pieces over here where you can define your target environments for your AWS accounts as an example, or mainly AWS accounts. And I think that's also the main focus right now. And this is where I think that the tool will be very powerful going forward, right? Where we get all of the direct integrations to AWS services built out in a better place within the workflows and within the environments. And the compute piece, this is right now, as you can see, for me, uninteresting. I've not used the enterprise tier yet. Ideally here you can, in going forward, have runners within your own VPCs that you can execute, or maybe also have your own infrastructure like Mac machines or something like that that you are not able to use right now in the standard tier. You can also manage secrets over here. And this is also pretty neat. You get a possibility to see the changes that have been applied to your different environments by the workflow executions. Then last but not least, on the left-hand side, you see the reports. We are not really using that in this project, but you can have test reports and quality reports here as well. You can later also have security scan reports and stuff like that. At least that's what I guess we might be adding over here. So this is a first view on the tool. Any questions right now?
Couple. Yeah, if you don't mind. So the first one, is there a way to specify the pipeline? Like there is a way GitLab or GitHub, when I specify what steps in there, what's actually happening, what integrations happen, what scans happen.
Yeah, I'm going to park that question and come back to it later, Max. It's kind of part of the rest that I have. Okay, I'm going to jump back over to the slide. So to the slides then, and for me, this now everyone should be on a 3, right? From your own assessment on what do you know about CodeCatalyst. So those that did not hear about it before should now have hopefully moved up from a 0 to a 3. If not, please let me know.
0 to 3, wow.
Would be cool if it would be that easy. So now we come to this slide, which is kind of which drives most of the rest of the talk, right? So CodeCatalyst is 6 months old now. It reached GA in April. It is obvious that it is not a perfect project yet, and it is obvious that it's not a finalized version of the tool yet. For me, it is important to iterate again that I've been really using this tool for 2 real projects for more than 6 months, right? So it is ready for production use. It is ready for prime time, but there are still a few things that we can and should be improving. Let's start with the bad things. And we already talked about one. Thank you, Max, for raising that question. Open source, you cannot use it for open source. Right now, there is no possibility to share your projects, your workflows, your experiences, or anything. There is a small possibility, one that I did not talk about. So let me jump back to the tool for a second, because you can, and I think I do have a project for that as well somewhere. You can link to an existing GitHub repository as of since the launch, right? So this really gives you the possibility. I think I have it over here, where you can. I think this is a good one. This one has a source code repository, but the source code repository should be stored in GitLab actually, in GitHub actually. At least that's what I was hoping for, right? So you can see over here, I can integrate my existing source code repositories on GitHub, and with that make it open source. But CodeCatalyst itself does not have that option, right? But the integration is there, which could be pretty powerful, but that weakens the message of we have an integrated DevTools service, right? Because we're taking developers out of the tool, then it's not integrated anymore, right? Which is why I like that idea, but I'm not a good friend of it, right? It weakens that main idea of what I have as a tool. But still, CodeCatalyst itself is bad for open source right now. Then from an enterprise perspective, I mentioned that at the beginning, there is no possibility right now to manage your own accounts or something like that. It's all done through the AWS Builders ID. There's no single sign-on mechanisms with existing IDPs that you might have. There is no possibility to add customer managed keys or your own VPCs restrictions. So the the workflows, the way that they are executed today, they always run on an AWS controlled infrastructure. And this is, of course, a limitation for a lot of the enterprise customers that I've been also talking about. And then last but not least, well, yeah, the migration, there's nearly no way into it, right? You can start with CodeCatalyst with new projects. You can integrate existing projects, but there is no support for migrating you into the tool in terms of getting your Jira issues pulled in, or importing your Git history into a Git repository that you now host in CodeCatalyst. These kind of things, or importing your workflows, right? From existing GitHub Action workflow, I want to get a CodeCatalyst workflow. That stuff doesn't exist today, which is why the migration piece is something that I believe the team needs to work on a little bit more. A project management perspective, this is kind of that issues view. I do have a Kanban board. I do have a backlog. I do not have a possibility to kind of have a Gantt chart or have an estimated report or do some kind of sprint thing or whatever, right? So I cannot get any reports out of that. So there's a lot of stuff that we still need to do, I believe. The collaborate thing, well, yeah, I'm not sure, right? I don't see that at the moment the tool fosters collaboration. It does not really help developers to collaborate better from the way that I see it, right? And that's why I put that on the left-hand side as well. Deploy and plan, I already talked about the plan piece from a deploy perspective. At launch, there was basic CDK actions available that you can use in the workflows to do deployments. Later, there was added Amplify hosting integrations and stuff like that. But when I last really interacted with the deploy option, it was not as good as I was hoping for, right? Yes, and I can show that later. If you use the CDK actions or the actions that the team provides, you will get access and a view into the CloudFormation pieces and the log files of what AWS does in the background after you executed your deployment. But I feel like this is something where we can get a little bit better. The code aspect, there's not much to say. It's a Git repository. You can also edit it online. So that's, I think, totally fine and ready to use. We have been using that. And the three things that for me really worked out quite well, and I would want to go a little bit into more details here, is the dev environments, is the blueprints, and is the build parts. So that's where I would like to show you some stuff kind of live as well, and on how the tool works today, so we all get a sense of how this looks like. Before I go there, any questions, comments, thoughts? I can see none in the chat. So
looks good.
Then let's go. So let's talk a little bit about the different options that we have, right? So I want to talk a little bit about the hidden gems of CodeCatalyst, the way that I see them, and I see that they have not yet gotten that much love as they should. Let's start first with the dev environments. So I already talked about dev environments a little bit earlier. Dev environments, you can think of it being like a Git pod, like a possibility of running your IDE in the cloud or running your IDE remotely. So you don't need to set up your local PC. In this case, I'm going to jump over to my other project where I already started the dev environment. At least that's what I hope for. You can see over here, we have a dev environment which is tailored to community speakers, the builder speaker directory, AWS meetup. I have opened that in a tab already. It usually takes like 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes to get up. And then it comes with your project checked out with AWS credentials already added to it. You directly have permissions to actually interact with it. And you can even customize this dev environment for all of your project team members by elaborating and changing this dev file. This is pretty cool because if you, like me and us working on this project, switch your devices regularly, so you have a work PC, you have a home PC, you maybe have an iPad or something like that, you get the possibility to, throughout the tool, create dev environment from a specific branch, which is in the browser. You can do that, or you can create one for Visual Studio, for IntelliJ, or for the other IDEs mentioned over here, right? Then you really get an easy setup for your development environment. You can directly start adding code. And the last time I gave this presentation in Munich, I failed here because I was trying to commit something and it did not get out of VI, right? So trust me, you can commit something here. You can do code changes, but I always fail to use VI to commit my commit message. So I'm going to skip that piece, right? But there's a lot of that's one of the hidden aspects from my perspective. Yes, also this one needs a little bit more integration. One of the first things that I wanted to see here is I want to see my workflows, right? I want to be able to see the execution of my workflows of the project within this IDE as well, which is something that I would really want to get out of the whole more integration idea. Then blueprints. So how did I get to my 20 projects or more? Well, I tried out the blueprints, right? This is where I really think that CodeCatalyst can make a difference. Why? Blueprints are a possibility to start a new project. So you can, when you start a new project, you can either bring your own code from an existing repository. This right now allows GitHub, linking GitHub repositories, and I can see potentially that we might be getting GitLab one day, right? And other source providers as well. You can build from scratch, so it starts empty with a repository within CodeCatalyst, but you can also start with blueprints. And this is one of the really hidden gems, the way that I see it, and something where I believe that CodeCatalyst can have an impact on us as developers or as engineers when we try to build software, especially for new projects, because you can see all of these, or at least the way that I see these blueprints, they are opinionated ideas of well-thought AWS folks that want to give us a direction on how they want to do things. And here I'm going to add that caveat. Well, that's not really true yet, right? Just now. I hope that this will come one day and it will get a little bit better, but it gives you a good starting point, right? So if you quickly want to go ahead and run and start a single page application, you just go over here, you just say, yeah, I want to start a project. You get a lot of descriptions around those blueprints and whatever that does. At this example, you're able to choose between different application frameworks. You can also choose between different hosting options. And I'm just going to do that by pressing next. You get some descriptions around that. In more details over here. Let's me add Boston OK SPA. You can then select an account that you're going to use, an existing role that obviously I've previously set up. You can then choose some configurations over here. So Max, as you're the only one on video right now, choose a web application framework. I don't care. Max, which one do you want to go with?
Oh, let's do React. I didn't touch Angular for years.
Okay, cool. Then Amplify hosting or CloudFront?
Oh, let's do CloudFront.
Are you more the Python or the TypeScript guy?
Actually both. Let's do TypeScript. I love it.
Okay, I hate Python, so I opt for TypeScript as well. Then over here, you then choose the deployment region where you want to actually host this. I'm going to go with US West 2. And then after a few minutes, you will have magically a project that hopefully follows best practices from a project setup perspective. Comes with a lot of Git pre-commit hooks to really cover that whole end-to-end lifecycle of your development project. And it also comes with a workflow, right? Which really allows you to deploy stuff out directly. Well, not all of that is true just now, but that's what I'm hoping for from a blueprint perspective. But there is a few blueprints that do that, right? So after using this blueprint, you now get that project that I was talking about. You get the source code repository that I was talking about. It comes with some documentation, but it also comes with CDK code that I can use and that I can modify, right? So even if I don't want to just bring up that SPA application, now I kind of have a construct or or something that I can start with if I want to do my own project. It also comes with a workflow. This is the piece that I've been complaining about most. This comes with 2 workflows, but these workflows are both pretty simple. I think I can't remember who had that question earlier, but how do you define a workflow was one of the questions that we had before. So on the one side, you can see the workflow running here, and this is too simple, right? It has build and test, it has CDK deploy, it does not have multiple stages, it does not have security scans included, it does not have any other best practices included. So yes, it deploys something out, but what we deploy with this one is kind of not directly production ready. And this is what I'm hoping for, right? To get blueprints that really help us to be production ready right from the start when we start with the project. How do you?
Could you please, could you please click this edit workflow button?
I was just going to do that. So now here we have 2 options. We have like 2 options. We have the visual presentation where I can visually add actions and work on actions over here. Here, CodeCatalyst distinguishes between actions that are CodeCatalyst owned, and then it has a cool GitHub Actions feature, right? So we are able to use most of the GitHub actions that are already available as part of one of the workflows. And this then allows me to add superlinter to it, right? Or add JQ or whatever I want to do and interact with all of my sources that I have here as well. But I can also, if I'm more the engineer guy that wants to do configuration as code, I can use a GitHub Actions like GitLab like structure of actually writing the pipeline configuration as code in a YAML structure as well. That question answered that the one that we had earlier. I think, Max, it was also from you, right?
Yes. Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, and this is pretty cool, right? There's so what I really like is the visual presentation before I actually click the commit button, right? That saved me a lot of things. I do not have that in GitHub Actions today, right? I always need to run the workflow first before I see it. So that's where I really like that workflow. And as you can see that over here, there's a few curated actions already, right? That the team has been working on very hard that allows a better version of integration. And it also pulls up some additional reports if you actually use them over there. And yes, that could always be better, right? But it's a good starting point. And until now, it helped me to do a lot of the things that I wanted to do. One of the newer ones here is an outgoing webhook that at the end then allows me to also interact with other services around CodeCatalyst if I would need to, right? One of the examples being notifications, because there's not much notifications kind of today. To address, Patrick, your question, the chat, it's not step functions, it's more than that, and it's more powerful than really a step function, right? It really gives you a lot of possibilities to integrate a lot of the tools and the things that you want to do from a workflow perspective. But of course, every CI/CD pipeline is kind of a step function, right? What makes it stand out towards code build is, at least at the time of giving this talk, the possibility to execute these workflow executions on a Lambda environment. So as you know, or most of you might know, if you used code build before, there's always those like 30 seconds wait until your pod comes up and your build is executed, right? They reduced that dramatically here by offering an option to run on Lambda, right? So that's pretty cool when you use the workflows. And for me, it always worked out pretty well so far. Okay, I'm gonna pause here for questions or feedback right now.
Access is via your builder ID, right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
yes. Cool. Access is built through your builder ID. So we were talking about blueprints, and we now used one, which is the SPA, but there is also another one which is pretty powerful, and this is the DPRA one, right? So the SPA one is the one extreme. It's the smallest kind of workflow that we have, and the DPRA is the biggest one at the end. I pressed that button once, and it costed me a few dollars because I afterwards forgot to turn off all of the environments. Luckily, the AWS team helped me with that. But if we look at the workflow execution for this one, you will see, or you should be seeing, deploying into a lot of different regions. I think this one was canceled, so we're not going to see that. But essentially, it's an implementation of this deployment pipeline reference architecture that AWS announced also at last reInvent, right? So it's this implementation of a truly AWS pipeline that goes from that deploys out into different stages, right? And it also deploys out in waves, and it deploys out into a lot of different regions as well. So as you can see, if you follow up that documentation later. So this is a massive pipeline, which is way too big for any project that you want to start, but it might give you an insight and might help you to really make your own deployment and workflow a little bit better and a little bit more streamlined as well. Yeah, this is another blueprint, right? So you can also just go to your space over here and then start in the same way that we just started the SPA blueprint. You can also go ahead and start the DPRA one. Where is that deployment pipeline? DevOps deployment pipeline, right? This is the one. And that will bring you up all of those services as well. For me, also, the blueprints gave me a possibility already to look into some cool stuff that I never did before. Like, what was that? I did some here, intelligent document processing, right? So this is a blueprint that uses texttract and other stuff that I never used before. So I just pressed the next button. It brought me up the infrastructure, and I was able to do small changes quickly, right? So think of all of the AWS examples that we have that are pretty powerful being available in a blueprint and just giving you the possibility to directly play with it and interact with it, right? That's where I see a lot of potential in the blueprints, opening up services and opening up technologies to people that otherwise first need to start reading a lot of documentation before they actually can get started. Second piece where the blueprints can really help, and also where I think one of my main focus areas right now is make sure that the CI/CD pipelines that we as a community build are better, right? So a lot of open source projects have a pipeline that just does exactly what this SPA thing does, right? It takes the source and deploys it somewhere. Well, that's not really how a CI/CD pipeline is built that we do in our professional life, right? And that's where I hope that the blueprints will help us to make CI/CD pipelines better and up that bar, raise that bar from a CI/CD perspective, right? All of the blueprints should come with security scans. All of the blueprints should come with linters, from my perspective. And this is something that I've been giving to the team as well as an input, because it raises the bar from a quality level perspective. It's the boring stuff, right? If you start a new project, you copy paste that from somewhere. But if we can take away that from developers, we're making the developer experience a little bit better and a little bit smoother. That's what I had for blueprints. Anyone got questions, comments, or thoughts around blueprints?
When you said when did you say it GA'd again?
I think it was in April this year.
In April of this year. So we saw the first preview of this at reInvent. By how much have the blueprints grown? The number of offerings.
So we started off with, I think, 7 or 8 blueprints at reInvent launch. We are now at 16.
Double. Yeah. Okay.
And
I was just curious how fast it was, how fast the number of blueprints was growing. Are those AWS contributors only, or can community contribute to that as well?
Yeah. So unfortunately, until now, and there's only blueprints by AWS. There's no possibility to open up right now the blueprints to other developers, which is, I say, it's a good and a bad thing, right? Because it's a good thing because, if you use a blueprint, it's kind of vetted and it's kind of verified as well. Now, on the other side, if I'm a person that would want to use the blueprints in my organization, I want to build my own ones, right? I want to make sure that I can have a blueprint for a microservice. That blueprint for microservice will then be used by all other teams, like by 25 or by 200 or whatever, right? And the moment that I change my blueprint, I want to have an apply button. So let's say I replace my security scanning tool from check marks to Aquasec or to Sneak or whatever, right? I don't want all of the teams to do that if it's part of the workflow that I built as part of a blueprint.
Right. You
I
want
want
to
to have
embed it in the blueprint itself. Yeah.
Exactly. That's what I want, right? So I can see custom blueprints hopefully coming in to the tool. And jumping over to the later going in at the end of what I had planned for today, right? That's one of the things that I think that also the tool needs to be more successful than it already is today.
Oh,
right?
Sorry, I jumped the gun. I apologize.
No, that's fine. That's a great question. Essentially, it's what I miss for the blueprints as well, right? So I would love to be able to provide a blueprint, and essentially Torsten is also here, right? We're working on a project, or we started a project, and I don't know if I'm allowed to teaser that here or not, but I think Torsten will not really care much. Which is targeted into that direction. It's around making sure that we can generate pipelines and then adopt them as well later, right? So I'm just going to put up the chat here in the chat here if anyone is interested to have a look later. That goes into the same direction of the workflows and the blueprints section that we want to talk about, right? And I think really here's a lot of potential where AWS can invest in making the blueprints really something that empowers developers to take faster and better action as well going forward, right? So that's what I had about blueprints. Now, next point that I wanted to touch on is a little bit of developer experience, and it's the tiny things that I believe that we still need to get better, right? So look at that. I'm a person that loves to use my history. Well, I know that I was at creating a blueprint, but what the hell? Which page was that? It's the tiny things that are still there to be fixed. If you do a git push for a feature branch, if you do that for Bitbucket, you get back a URL that allows you to open a pull request. So I can right-click that link that I get back after a commit. I don't know if I have an example over here. I think I don't. Oh, over here, yeah. I get a link back where I can then just click on right click and I can then open up a pull request. It's those tiny things that make my life as a developer easier, right? I would love to get that as well. And there's still some stuff. These are the kind of small things where I believe that we still need to invest a little bit within the tool, and we still need to make things a little bit smoother. Then options like I want to be able to trigger a workflow based on a specific commit message, which is something that we sometimes also use in other areas, right? Today, I can only trigger a workflow on commit, or so on push or on pull request creation, but I cannot trigger workflows based on commit messages like run this workflow now or do security scan or something like that, right? When it was announced, there was no possibility to really link from pull requests to issues or to workflows. So I cannot say in this pull request now I want to start a workflow to verify that this has been fixed or something like that. I don't have a possibility right now either to add checks on pull requests, like I want Chris to approve this one because this is my secret page that I just updated. Only Chris and I know, but he needs to approve this PR. Yes, I can do that because I can add Chris as a reviewer, but there's no automations that I can build in for parts of that. And this really, I think, is something that we need to get better at. Like, you have approved 5 pull requests in that same way. I don't want to do that again, right? I want someone to help me doing that and just take that decision for me to really empower developers to take better decisions and develop faster. It's those kind of small things that I still believe that the tool still needs. Cool. So with 50 minutes in, and I had an hour, we went through most of the stuff that I had. Before I do the wrap up, any questions from anyone?
I told Thorsten that you were saying bad things about him in here. That's why he jumped in.
I know. That's good.
Okay.
He needs to hear that. Let's come to my conclusion. On what I think that CodeCatalyst needs right now. Right. So I have 2 pictures for that. first of all, I mentioned that at the beginning, well, the tool somehow needs money. It needs to sell, right? Somehow it needs to be really adopted by users. I've been running 5 spaces with like 5 or 20 pages each, and I've not paid $1 for it, right? That's good for me, bad for AWS. So if they really want to get this tool to be developed further, I think they somehow need to attack the enterprise sector somehow. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, there's a few mandatory key features that I believe that we miss, right? So we really need to get companies and to adopt the service if we want to be able to be successful with this one. And this means single sign-on, custom VPCs to execute my own stuff, further integrations. It also means really making it more attractive to use CodeCatalyst for enterprises that are on AWS by enhancing the integrations between CodeCatalyst and the console or the services, right? The power is at AWS. You just need to bring that into one workflow tool. And then that's the second picture on the right-hand side. This is, for me as an engineer, even more important. The tool needs more, I really want to do this, right? I really want to use this. It needs to be more sexy, and it needs to remove my day-to-day burdens that I have, right? If I review 10 pull requests a day, and I take 5 times the decision to approve it because it's only 1 line of code, I don't want to do that again, right? I want to get suggestions or automated decisions on PRs. I want to get the tool to help me with workflow automation. It feels sometimes a little bit more like a Me Too, and we are like 3 years behind GitHub and others. The team needs to show that there is a vision of having that integrated DevTools service, right? Which really gives developers that one view of where they want to act with and interact with AWS services and AWS deployment strategies as well. And this is what I want to represent with the right-hand picture. It's like, well, we need that wow effect, right? That really makes us love CodeCatalyst as a tool. And here I really hope for reInvent to bring up some of those features or some features that will really help us understand why CodeCatalyst is more than just Me Too and more than just a code pipeline or code build redo, right? A code star redo. That's my wrap up for today. Thank you so much for having me. And questions, comments?
Okay, now I have
and
questions.
feedback.
Okay, so
let's go ahead.
Code. Correct me if I'm wrong, and I probably am. But Code Pipeline did not get widespread adoption because it's stuck way too close to the AWS ecosystem. It did not allow people to branch outside, get third-party integrations, work. It did not play well with others. Mm-hmm. And so then CodeCatalyst came along, and it's in the right direction. But to your point, are they trying to attain feature parity with things that we already know and love? Or I mean, what's the play here? Like who are they trying to attract with this? Somebody that's already using a bunch of other tools, or brand new developers that don't know any better yet?
I think that's a very good question. I've asked that question as well.
Okay. So it's not just me. All right.
I think it feels like sometimes that was not clear. Thorsten is just commenting in the chat that they don't know. That's, well, I'm not sure, right? I think that there have.
Damn it, Thorsten! I shouldn't have drunk when he said that.
There is an idea on why what they are trying to attract with. So for me, there is a vision behind all of that, right? And it is really making sure that we get developers to have a better view into how they do things at AWS and how we can actually integrate with the services. I think right now the focus needs to be on enterprises, as I already mentioned.
Agreed.
And it's not for open source. So it's not for the Johannes, for the Chris developer that wants to play around with the tool right now, right? It's really more focused on, oh, well, yeah, you already have AWS as a partner. You already signed the contract. Yes, well, you can spend dollars. okay, CodeCatalyst is just $500 more a month. You will not even notice that if you have 50 developers. Just use it, right? It's like the Microsoft Teams, maybe, right? Which Teams also got to them. That might be one of the things, right? And what I can assure you is that a lot of members on the team are aware that they are a few years behind with the stuff that they are doing. And they have to catch up now. And getting that vision clearer is something that I'm also trying to help with by getting all of your feedback around what you think, right? So if you now spend some time with the tool afterwards, after this call, because you just saw it and you think like it might be a good idea, please feel free to send me your feedback and your thoughts and comments as well, so I can hand that over to the team and make sure that we shape something that is better, right? Chris, CodeCatalyst is a bet right now, right? So it can go like that, but it can also go like that in the current way of doing things.
So I mean, I don't think any tool is good or bad. It's all how you use it and the use case and everything. I mean, well, no, there's crappy tools out there. But anyway, I don't think CodeCatalyst is a bad tool at all by any stretch. I mean, I think it's got its place. And my question is just around like the future use cases and stuff. If they're aiming for the enterprise, they've already got well-established workflows for things, and for them to just say, okay, well, you're burning 50K with us now, what's 51K? If you just rewrite your entire workflow setup to use this, I mean, that's actually a significant person hour lift. I don't know. I'm not.
Yeah. So
I do not mean to poo-poo. This was a fantastic presentation. I'm just trying to grok the person that's going to go, yeah, I definitely need to get into this.
Well, maybe an observation from a longtime enterprise, type type player. I see Microsoft do a lot of what I would consider to be somewhat goofy, questionable things, and then because they don't like to be number two, and there's a dynamic that happens. I used to work for Fidelity, and they did a lot of silly things because they were the biggest mutual fund company in the world, and when it looked like somebody like Schwab was going to come along and eat their shorts, forgive the expression, they did even sillier things sometimes. So there are certain, I know this is not an earth-shattering observation, but funny things happen to people when they get all tied up with where they are in the marketplace, right? And for me, it's almost like, well, what do you mean? You can just hear somebody in a C-suite hallway at Amazon say, what do you mean we're ahead of the rest of the market, and yet we don't have this, we don't have that we don't have the other, so we can't offer a full suite of tools. That certainly animates Microsoft a lot. So it wouldn't surprise me if it was animating them, and they understand that they're not going to. I mean, what's it going to take to beat GitHub at GitHub's game?
So I have no insights into the C-levels, Michael, but I have a bit of insights into what the team thinks of, what the team has in mind, and that is not trying to build something that is me too, right? So there is a vision and a strategy behind it. They have a way forward, and they are not aiming to kind of replicate what these other tools already have.
Well,
the vision
is sort of a more respectable argument too, but I'm just I don't have any special knowledge. I was just, having been in some of these conversations, I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't just that simple. But I hope it's that somebody has a notion that they're going to actually do something that makes the world a better place. That's great. I
think it's always a little bit more complicated than just that, right? In an enterprise world and in an organization like AWS, I think it's really hard to have one direction. One of the things that I gave as a direct feedback after last year's reInvent was like, cool, you now announced Application Composer, which creates infrastructure as code for you, is a visual tool. At the same time, you launch CodeCatalyst, which has blueprints options for you to actually start your project. But what the hell, you don't launch that integrated? How the hell can that
right.
happen, right? I would like to have a fourth option where I can click on, I want to start a project with Application Composer, and that then generates me the SAM template, including with the CI/CD workflow. So, and that's kind of what happens in a bigger organization like AWS, right? So I think, and others on this call, I'm not looking at anyone, Torsten, have had more exposure with this tool before actually it got announced than I did, right? And they know that there has been a lot of changes in directions as well. And I think that's what happens in big organizations, right? I can see that happening in my own as well.
Yeah, my
Welcome back,
5
Mr.
cents.
Tarbox. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. I just wanted to say that in enterprise, at least in some financial and some payment gateways domains, there are pretty strict restrictions and enforcements from our security teams on us of what tools we are actually allowed to use for
Sure.
SAST, DAST, and that type of scans. And often, I can't say that always, but often we choose to use GitLab.com or something similar, but not specifically inside AWS for all that type of automation because of these integrations with HashiCorp, with Snyk, with Datadog, with a lot of stuff. And then we use AWS for deployment, for Kubernetes, and such for data management. And it looks like to me that this CodeCatalyst is shooting for that type of companies that currently deploy, let's say, in GitLab.com and GitHub, but not moving all of our pipelines to AWS. Again, at least that's my 5 cents.
So, but on the other side, one of the powers of this blueprint thing could be you can mandate what teams use. So,
yes,
and that's
it looks great. Yes, I agree. Yeah.
And so see here, I have a wish list of things I want to get, and of things I would want to have, right? Not all of them will make it into the product, right? But one of them is I want to have blueprints that teams cannot edit. There are workflows that teams need to mandatory follow, and there is always the security check. There is always the Snyk. There is always the I don't know, whatever kind of verification check, the open source scan that I need to have, and I cannot bypass that, right?
That right there is the enterprise sales pitch, I'm going to call it. That's the use case that I would wrap around somebody from code. If somebody's trying to sell an enterprise CodeCatalyst, SCP-like policy control of your CI/CD pipeline and all of your tooling and granular IAM policy throughout the chain, including testing and all that shit. That's I didn't think about that. That is a seller right there.
Right.
And as I said, there is a lot of potential going forward, right? But the team has had his hand full to deliver a lot of the cool things that we have today, right? And you always, well, even though this might be a microservice build architecture or whatever, right? You can still only have a mention of a number of people on that specific project, right? You cannot really split that too much. Okay, good. Yeah, that was great questions, great comments as well.
Brian, we made fun of you the entire time. He actually didn't present. It was just literally make fun of Tarbox for 1 hour.
It was fun.
Especially since you're still muted.
Okay. Well, at least I didn't make you listen to my whole other meeting that I was.
Brian, mute.
Thank you.
Right. Did we do a raffle yet?
No.
Okay, Johannes, do you have a trivia question, or else I'll just do a sci-fi question?
Do I have a trivia question? I did not prepare one.
Right. And Chris,
but I can
know that I continued my trend of screwing up and not asking ahead of time. So I'm 100 for 100 on that.
What is the traditional German men's pants? The name for the traditional German men's pants worn at Oktoberfest? Okay,
and before you answer, don't say it out loud. Answer in the chat, and the first person who unfortunately just has to be in the US because that's all I can send the mug to,
Jens Thorsten doesn't count.
Yeah, he's not in the US either, right?
Put the answer in the chat. There you go. Michael Clark won.
Okay.
Ausgezeichnet, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was almost there.
So Michael, if you can email me your postal address, and I'm Brian Tarbox at Gmail. Send me your postal address, and I'll send you a Boston AWS mug.
So just Boston, or just Brian Tarbucks or Brian Tarbucks at?
All one word, Brian Tarbox.
Okay, will do. Thank you. Postal. Thanks.
And don't forget to clip that off the end of the YouTube video. Otherwise, you'll get a lot of emails.
Yeah.
I like lots of emails. It makes me feel important.
Oh. All right. I am literally 3 for 3 for user group recordings for the past 3 nights. So Kim is going to kill me if I don't get out of here and go watch Only Murders in the Building with her this evening.
Oh, you're on that one. Yeah.
We are on that one. And I said, I'm doing Brian a solid. And then she said, okay, but then we're watching the show.
Please give her my thanks. So
have a wonderful evening, everybody.
Thank you so much, Chris.
Excellent presentation. Bye, guys.
And thank you for being up until the middle of the night. So,
oh, yeah.
Chris. All right. See y'all.
See y'all. Bye-bye.
Thank you.